a drop of water rolling from the hillside. A nation and a man. But when the drop of water joins the brook, becomes a stream, and then a river composed of many drops of water gathering together, a great force rushes forward to form the ocean. And so it is that when man works hand in hand with other men, he becomes greater than one, that he becomes a nation, strong and free and undivided as the sea. No man is an island complete in himself. So wrote the English poet John Donne. Each is a part of the mainland. And so, in 1949, Great Britain's oldest colony, Newfoundland, joined the 9 provinces of Canada to bring about the ideal of working hand in hand with Canadians in the inevitable climax of Confederation. In Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island, in this stone building, the little stream of ideals, hopes, and aspirations that had their sources in many far-flung cottages, farms, and towns were merged together in the river course shaped by the guiding hand of the fathers of Confederation, flowing inevitably into the vastness of Canada today. Premier Matheson is our host in the original home of Confederation.
The fathers of Confederation in 1864 built and formulated the idea that afterwards became this great country that we now are happy to be members of.
A unified system of government across the face of the map of Canada came about in 7 principal stages. Canada became a nation in 1867, when the provinces of New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, Ontario, and Quebec entered Confederation. Manitoba followed in 1870. British Columbia in 1871. Prince Edward Island in 1873. The Yukon Territory was organized in 1898. Alberta and Saskatchewan joined the other provinces in 1905. At the same time, the Northwest Territories were reconstituted. The unified map of Canada was completed as Newfoundland, the last remaining portion of British North America, joined forces with Canada in March 1949. Newfoundland's rich historical traditions have been linked with the history of all British North America from the very start, for Newfoundland was the cornerstone of British colonization in the New World. In 1497, John Cabot set out from Bristol, England, under charter from Henry VII on a voyage of discovery. 53 days later, he first saw the welcome sight of land at the end of his journey. Oh, Buena Vista! Oh, beautiful sight, was Cabot's cry. And this, the rocky shoreline that he saw, is still named Buena Vista. Its lighthouse today remains a friendly sight to mariners approaching the stern coast of Newfoundland. The rich fishing grounds discovered by John Cabot were bringing fortunes in fish, seal, and whale to men of many nations. In fact, the waters were so heavily fished by so many countries that in 1583, Queen Elizabeth sent Sir Humphrey Gilbert to take firm possession and control of Newfoundland in the name of Great Britain. Gradually, settlements followed. The first, established at Cupid by John Guy, is still part of the Newfoundland scene today. But Britain's struggle to gain control of the Newfoundland was not easy. The French had settled and fortified Placentia in 1662. Years of battle followed. Then, in 1713, the Treaty of Utrecht left the cannons rusting in the fields. Nearly 100 years later, under William Carson, came the first step toward self-determination, representative government. Responsible government followed in 1855. But the history of government is the history of men. Cold events are colored with the magic and warmth of personality. The walls of the colonial building in St. John's honor the leaders of Newfoundland who safely brought the country through her growing pains. The Depression of the 1930s, the interlude of government by commission up through the prosperous years after World War II. And now came the years of decision. And at this great crossroads stood a man with a dream. United, he believed the people could accomplish anything. United in Newfoundland and united in confederation with neighbors next door in Canada. The man with the right answer for the future was Joseph R. Smallwood. For when all the talking was done and the last referendum ballot was tallied, the people had decided with him on their course. Newfoundland would be the 10th Canadian province. In Ottawa's Parliament buildings, the first terms of union were discussed. The hand of Canada takes the hand of Newfoundland. The Prime Minister, Louis Saint Laurent, welcomes the delegation. Sir Albert Walsh speaks for the new province to be. And then, the great moment at last. Prime Minister Louis Saint Laurent signs for Canada, while Canada's elder statesman, the Right Honorable Mackenzie King, gives his blessing to the historic conference. Sir Albert Walsh signs the terms of union for Newfoundland. And while the men that made history watched, Joseph R. Smallwood signed, and Newfoundland joined the mainland as the 10th province of Canada. After the final implementations of union have been achieved, nearly 4 months later, on April 1st, 1949, the official announcement was made by the Prime Minister.
Other fellow Canadians, from sea to sea, I should like to direct my first words today to the people of the new Canadian province of Newfoundland. I know I am speaking for the people of the other 9 provinces when I say that we welcome you warmly as fellow Canadians. Together, we shall strive under God's guidance and with confidence in our future to build a greater and a better land.
To symbolize the entry of Newfoundland into Confederation, Mr. Saint Laurent carved the beginnings of the new shield over the great arch of the Parliament buildings in Ottawa. Newfoundland, Britain's oldest colony, Canada's newest province. For untold centuries, the broad Atlantic has rolled against her rocky shores. While inland, the ocean winds blow across a country rich in spectacular beauty and natural resources. On Signal Hill, Cabot Tower stands guard above old St. John's, the capital of the province. Its harbor, a refuge famed for centuries in war and peace. But this oldest city of North America is beginning to reflect the new spirit of Confederation as the pace quickens and her citizens face their expanding future with industry and with confidence. For now that the island had joined the mainland in Confederation, the government planned and began to carry out a great program of progress with new techniques to renew and advance the old way of doing things, to raise the standards of the people. In short, to lift Newfoundland up to her proper and outstanding place in the nation. Newfoundland's master boat builders have, for many generations, been acknowledged among the finest craftsmen in their trade. Under Confederation, the Fisheries Loan Board has been established, and every fisherman who wants to build his own boat is helped with blueprints, financial assistance, and technical advice. To the world at large, Newfoundland is probably best known for her abundant fishing grounds. But ironically, before Confederation, the fisherman who fought the elements and the uncertain ocean for his catch was poorly rewarded. His average income was only $400 a year. Still, there are thousands of fishermen, and their welfare affects most Newfoundland settlements. To safeguard the Newfoundland fishermen's future, the government instituted a great new fisheries development program. One of the first steps was the building of a model ship to introduce better techniques for ensuring a good catch. It was a Danish-type seiner like this vessel, with a Norwegian skipper who demonstrated new methods for making fishing more sure and efficient. In waters where a rocky bottom would make Danish seining impractical, long lining is used with great success. This is another method introduced under the government's development program. First, the long lines with hundreds of baited hooks are paid out and buoyed. When the last hook is set out, the long liner returns to the first buoy and the line is winched in. Fish are removed, cleaned, and the hooks are then rebaited, ready for the next day. Longliners account for a substantial part of the millions of pounds of codfish which are caught yearly in Newfoundland. But as the fishing vessel returns to port, the fisherman's task is only partly done. The catch has to be processed and made ready for the market. Possibly the oldest known method of preserving fish is by salting it and drying the salt fish in the rays of the sun. This method is still used in some small communities in Newfoundland, as it has been for centuries, providing plenty of work for the women and the children, too. But picturesque as this technique of drying on the flakes may be, it is now giving way to mechanical processes. The federal government has built in Bonne Vista an experimental saltfish plant. This has proved to be very successful and has now been taken over by private enterprise. More and more of the 70 million pounds of salt codfish produced yearly in Newfoundland will come in the future from automatic dryers as a general change of outlook comes to the island. More stress as a consequence is being placed on mechanization and efficiency as against the never-ending hand labor of former days. Besides the salt codfish production, fresh frozen fillets have been playing an increasingly important part in Newfoundland's fish industry. The production of fresh frozen fillets has grown from 11 million pounds in 1940 to over 60 million pounds in 1957. Most of these fillets are exported to the United States, and Newfoundland now supplies a great proportion of all the frozen fish on the American market. Granting $12 million in loans in the past 8 years to 18 fish plants, the government has helped to create a source of income of nearly $50 million for more than 8,000 Newfoundlanders. One of the most recent delicacies to appear on the fish market is the fish steak. In this plant at Trapassi, fish is filleted, frozen into steaks, dipped in butter, breaded, and then fried in deep fat. First appearing on the market in 1952, fish steaks have enjoyed considerable popularity. So the fish plant has become an important part of the Newfoundland scene. 150 million pounds of fish are taken every year from Newfoundland waters. The province produces about 1/3 of Canada's commercial catch. An outstanding example of how the principles of Confederation are being applied to improve the living standards of people is in the community of Lassie in White Bay. Here, the Newfoundland government has built a water system and is now constructing a $1 million fish plant. Hand in hand with the island's new program of development, the federal government is building a breakwater and a wharf for $750,000. Lassie is not the only place where the federal government has assisted in the development of Newfoundland fisheries. Every year since 1949, some 300 different jobs totaling $2 or $3 million are completed on wharves and breakwaters. And there are 6,000 to 8,000 people on the federal payroll. In addition to these improvements to wharves and breakwaters, the federal government has provided a harbor dredging service. The coming of Confederation means increased help from science, too. Such ships as HMCS Labrador, Canada's most modern ocean laboratory, study Newfoundland waters and offer the benefits of our new knowledge of the ocean. Man's past, his present, and his future lie in the never-ending wealth of seawater. Water and sea bottom samples for detailed study of fish and marine life are evaluated in the ship's own laboratories. Equipped with the latest electronic and meteorological instruments, HMCS Labrador will also chart the best routes for navigation. But as basic to Newfoundland as is the sea are the trees of the island. Ideally suited for paper making, these trees have supplied the necessary raw material for 2 huge paper mills. Bowater's Newfoundland Pulp and Paper Mill in Corner Brook on the west coast, and the Anglo-Newfoundland Development Company's mill in Grand Falls in central Newfoundland. These companies are now working hand in hand with the government on research and exploration of other possible locations for development. Since Confederation, approximately $20 million have been spent by Bowaters for modernization. Thousands of Newfoundlanders have found well-paid employment in these camps, and there are some who have in just a few summers earned and saved enough money to return to their settlements and launch businesses of their own. The Anglo-Newfoundland Development Company's mill at Grand Falls was the first to be established in Newfoundland, and now produces over 800 tons of pulp and paper a day. The company employs 5,000 workers. The mill's transportation system, which carries the logs from the boom in the Exploits River to the huge stockpiles, has recently been rebuilt, and now it's one of the most modern and up-to-date in Canada.
And continue to shop, drive, and call, and long may the business be many by Mr. Dorothy and Mr. Paul.
largest integrated pulp and paper mill in the world, is situated in Newfoundland's second city, Corner Brook. Here is paper machine number 7. It was the largest in the world when it was installed in Bowater's mill. The roll of paper that comes off this machine is 284 inches wide, and it would measure 3 miles in length when unrolled. 1,100 tons of newsprint and paper pulp to supply the world are produced daily by this mill. Boat after boat comes into Corner Brook or Botwood, the shipping harbor for the A&D Company, to carry rolls of Newfoundland newsprint to the 4 corners of the earth and to bring dollars into many Newfoundland households. Of the 2 ways to enter Newfoundland, by air or by sea, the entrance at Port aux Basques on the west coast is the more familiar. Beyond Port aux Basques, going eastward, is the beginning of a new development in agriculture. For centuries, agriculture in Newfoundland was of the supplementary type. A man earned his living in a fishing boat, a logging camp, a mine, or a factory, and in his spare time grew a few vegetables for his family. With the establishment of government experimental stations such as this, where various species are tested as to their suitability for Newfoundland soils and climate, the groundwork for commercial farming has been laid, and agriculture is gaining in importance. One of the richest soil areas of the province, long recognized as such, is the fertile Codroy Valley. But spectacular results through land clearance and development have also been achieved recently on the East Coast, in areas long regarded as too rocky for farming. A force behind this new interest in the land is Premier Smallwood. On this large farm, the Premier's son-in-law is attempting to show just what can be accomplished in the agricultural advancement of Newfoundland if modern, efficient methods are adopted. This fine stand of oats certainly seems to back up the soundness of his ideas. Just as rewarding has been the poultry and egg project. If more and more farmers try their hand at this branch of agriculture, someday Newfoundland may supply her own eggs and poultry. By the middle of the 19th century, the men of Newfoundland had begun to recognize in hills and rocks great natural resources. As early as 1839, the government had hired a geologist from England who did some surveying and mapping. In 1857, copper was discovered at Tilt Cove, and a mine went into operation. For 20 years, Tilt Cove provided handsome profits for its owners. But the mining methods were primitive, the output decreased, and the mine closed down. Confederation with Canada brought the attention of powerful mainland mining companies to Newfoundland, and the government, too, was prepared to finance costly and extensive surveys of old and new resources. As a result, Tilt Cove Mine will be reopened and promises to be one of the most profitable copper mines on the island. In 1905, an Indian named Mitchell located the Buckens River ore body, and a small mill was started. But it had to be closed because it was impossible in those days to separate the fine particles of mineral from the ore. Development of the flotation process made possible the opening of Buckens. A chemical foam suspending the valuable lead, zinc, and copper is skimmed off the top of the water. In the first years, mining at Buckens was mostly done in open pits, but today it is entirely an underground operation, the deepest shaft going down 3,000 feet. The mine employs over 800 people. The capacity of the mill is 1,200 tons per day. Certainly, the most famous mine in Newfoundland is the Dominion Steel and Coal Corporation's Wabana operation on Bell Island. This is the only submarine-type iron mine in the world. Over 2,000 men work here up to 3 miles from shore and 1,350 feet below the ships that pass overhead. Bell Island is a good example of how Newfoundland has progressed since Confederation. Since 1949, nearly $10 million have been spent on bringing facilities up to date and improving working conditions for miners. The joy loader here, with its crab-like claws, scoops up the ore, loosened from the work base by drills and blasting, and passes it along into one of the waiting shuttle cars. These cars haul it away to the wagons of the Underground Electric Railway. Over a network of tunnels and connecting shafts, which nearly equals in length the street system of the city of St. John's, the ore is brought to the tipper, goes through a crushing plant, and lands on a conveyor belt, the longest in the world. This belt ends at Scotia Pier and is capable of loading a 10,000-ton ore boat in 2 hours. From small beginnings in 1895, this mine has developed into a giant, producing over 3 million tons of iron ore a year. One of the world's leading producers of fluorspar are the mines at St. Lawrence on the Burin Peninsula. 500 people work here above and under the surface, producing in a year 100,000 tons of high-grade fluorspar, which is sufficient to supply the needs of Canada's entire aluminum industry and have some left over to export to the United States. Newfoundland and Labrador Corporation in 1952 brought a new era of research and development to the 10th Canadian province. Investors, new companies and organizations from the mainland and beyond poured into Newfoundland and Labrador nearly $1.5 million a year for exploration. One of them, the Iron Ore Company of Canada, developed a huge iron mine at Knob Lake, Labrador. The new mining developments since Confederation, together with systematic exploration programs, have raised Newfoundland's mineral production from $16 million in 1949 to well over $70 million in 1957. Knob Lake alone produces annually 12 million tons of ore. Gigantic electrical shovels scoop up the high-grade ore from the open pits. 10 times more ore per day is obtained with this equipment than would be possible in underground mining. 12 diesel trains a day running from Knob Lake to Seven Islands pull as many as 115 cars full of ore. On the Menahek River, the first great hydro station was built to furnish electrical energy for the mine. Premier Smallwood and dignitaries from the mainland and the United States were present for the opening ceremonies. To link up the tremendous developments that took place after Confederation, Newfoundland needed roads. This was another great facet of the government's new plans for progress after 1949. Neither trains nor coastal boats were equal to the job of getting people and supplies around the island fast enough to keep up with events. So, earth-moving equipment appeared, and the construction program began. Here is a section of the Trans-Canada Highway in the vicinity of Deer Lake. And in hundreds of other places in the new province, the government has constructed and rebuilt more miles of road than were built in the entire preceding 50 years. The very nature of the country makes extensive road building a truly monumental task. Mechanical monsters like these carryalls are needed to complete the job. But already, the new roads have connected up over 200 towns and settlements that had been isolated for centuries. To cross some of the wider stretches of water, as for example the Gut at Placentia, car passenger ferries have been built and have taken their share of the more than $70 million expended to construct a transportation and communication network for the Newfoundland of tomorrow. When this new ferry was put into operation, the first trip was a gala occasion with many dignitaries on hand. And the people got the opportunity to meet in person their representatives in the government who were responsible for getting the job done. The Honorable E.S. Spencer, Premier Smallwood, the Honorable Gregory Power, and so, another link was forged in Newfoundland's fast-growing network of communications. Of the Newfoundland countryside, over 100 new concrete and steel bridges have sprung up since Confederation. The Queen of the Bridge over the Gander River was the largest of the projects completed. And in this picturesque setting, the Charles Ballum Bridge links Corner Brook to Irishtown. But vital as this kind of construction may be, the road to Newfoundland's golden future must be built of more than concrete and steel. It must also be built of vital, progressive ideas. Ideas nurtured by a vital, progressive system of education. From the small one-room school to the institutions of higher learning, there has been a tremendous growth since Confederation. One of the significant additions to education in Newfoundland has been the development of regional high schools like this one at Foxcroft. Here, students from many small communities travel, usually by bus, to one large, well-equipped high school where they can enjoy facilities and equipment that would be beyond the capabilities of their individual communities. Cadet training teaches discipline and builds character in boys. In vocational training schools such as this, boys are given the opportunity to become mechanical or diesel engineers or wireless operators. The government has spent, since Confederation, some $70 million on the huge educational program and has built over 200 new educational institutions. Because more and more Newfoundland children are seeking higher educational goals and the population is getting larger, the number of pupils in school has grown from 75,000 in 1949 to more than 105,000 in 1956. The Book Bureau of the Department of Education sends required textbooks to schools all over the province, with the government paying half of the cost and the students the other half. The Department of Education has developed a modern audiovisual division. Up-to-date tools of technology are helping to alleviate teacher shortages. This division is principally responsible for the production of educational radio broadcasts and the distribution of educational films for use in schools. These films, seen by 1.5 million students each year, make available to the smallest school the most modern methods of teaching. But all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. So there's basketball for him. And to keep Jill from being a dull girl, there's also physical education and choral work as a happy relief from books and pencils. But the Newfoundland government's educational program doesn't end with the very young. Each year, the Division of Adult Education provides many hundreds of students from the ages of 18 to 60 with dozens of courses ranging from public school subjects to the pre-university level. There are excellent courses provided, too, in commercial subjects. To the well-equipped laboratories and lecture halls of the Memorial University of Newfoundland in St. John's come Canada's future citizens. Such young men and women as these will be needed to develop the Newfoundland of tomorrow. And here is that never-to-be-forgotten moment when, before the admiring glances of family and friends in the audience and the dignitaries on the platform, the student receives the symbolic hood of academic achievement. The Chancellor, Lord Rothermere, adds his best wishes, followed by the plaudits of the audience. And then the graduate steps out of the academic world and into life. Perhaps even with such a coveted reward as the Governor General's Medal, a golden token of the appreciation of the community at large for those to whom it looks for future leadership. Besides increased educational facilities, Newfoundland, after 1949, added better medical services for the people. The General Hospital in St. John's may be considered the base hospital for the province. In addition to 475 beds, the most modern X-ray and operating rooms, this institution also has the finest of laboratories for examination and analysis of specimens submitted by doctors not only in the hospital, but in the city at large and from the most distant communities. The modern Western Memorial Hospital in Corner Brook, an institution of similar character, serves not only the people of the paper town, but also treats serious cases from many West Coast communities. And in smaller places like Springdale, Fogo, Channel, or Markland here, the government has built and operates 18 cottage hospitals, which now provide service to about one-half the population outside St. John's. These cottage hospitals are equipped to handle the majority of everyday problems of sickness and injury. All, in fact, except the really serious cases which must be sent to a large city hospital. In nursing stations like this one in Trepassey, a nurse in charge is always available to give the skilled advice and assistance that we all need from time to time in the business of growing older or just growing up. Even communities that are too small and remote to have a nursing station have not been forgotten. Hospital boats like the Lady Anderson here and 4 new cabin cruisers regularly visit the south, west, and other regions of our coastline. The arrival of the boat is eagerly awaited, not only because of the contact with the outside world she represents, but also because there's always need for a doctor who can examine and prescribe. The most recent addition to the network of health services in Newfoundland is the air ambulance service. Small planes and helicopters have shortened immeasurably the length of time needed to transfer the seriously ill or injured from their outport homes to hospitals where they can have proper treatment. Together with improved living conditions, Salk vaccine as protection against polio, BCG vaccination against tuberculosis, and free child dental services are steadily raising the health standards of the island. The number one enemy to Newfoundland's health before Confederation was tuberculosis. To fight this deadly disease, the government established a plan that called for the expenditure of $60 million for health services. A big 300-bed sanatorium was built in Corner Brook. Equipped with the latest medical facilities and staffed with highly skilled personnel, this institution was a tremendous help in the fight against TB in the province. The sanatorium in St. John's has been modernized, and besides medical treatment, great stress is now placed on bedside teaching and various commercial courses designed to prepare the patient for suitable jobs after release from hospital. To detect tuberculosis in the early stages, when it is easier to cure, mobile X-ray clinics were sent out by boat, by train, and by car. These units visited the smallest communities, paying particular attention to school children. All these steps have helped to cut down the long waiting lists for available beds in sanatoria. As a matter of fact, it has actually been possible to close completely one wing in the St. John's Sanatorium because the beds simply are not needed anymore. In the field of mental and nervous diseases, great progress is being made. The government has built a large new wing at the Hospital for Mental and Nervous Diseases in St. John's and engaged more doctors for important pioneering work. The outpatients department, for example, is remarkable, one of the first of its kind in Canada. Where necessary, the most modern treatment, including the latest tranquilizing techniques, is used, besides long-established and very effective occupational therapy. Among other government services operating under Confederation is the Department of Public Welfare Infants Home in St. John's. Many of these youngsters are wards of the department and will be cared for here until suitable foster homes can be found for them. The Glenbrook Home for Girls, operated by the Salvation Army, receives government assistance to carry on their work of extending a helping hand to unmarried mothers and their children. At Whitburn, boys in trouble become good citizens again through academic and manual instruction in an atmosphere of patience and friendliness. The welfare program includes the girls' home, the city welfare office, and the old age home. The monthly family allowance check. In many households, the greatest single aid toward a happier and healthier future has become an important part of Newfoundland's improved living conditions since Confederation. One of today's great social benefits, 80,000 of these checks are mailed every month from the Family Allowance Division in St. John's. The total amount dispersed in this province since Confederation is over $100 million. So, care, comfort, and emergency help are being provided. And new homes are becoming an important part of the scene. The individual Newfoundlander, wherever he lives, is learning the advantages of belonging to a community. Through town council planning introduced by the Newfoundland government after Confederation, communities are looking after themselves with advice and financial assistance from the government. New homes, new facilities, a new life. Not a branch of the Department of Welfare, but working in a somewhat similar direction through the Department of Labor is the Workmen's Compensation Board, another innovation since Confederation. The chairman of the board, Irving Fogwell, reports.
From April 1st, 1951 to March 31st, 1956, there were 50,465 accidents reported to the board, of which 105 were fatal accidents. The total cost of those accidents were $5,993,178.61. Medical, hospital, and traveling costs amounted to slightly over $1 million. The administration costs for the 5 years amounted to $699,313.84, which averages out at $140,000 per year. The board covers 75,000 workmen and 2,500 employers.
Today, Newfoundlanders are feeling a new sense of pride and accomplishment as they go about familiar tasks, but tasks that have been vitalized through a new dynamic approach since Confederation. Natural resources have been made easier to draw upon. Instead of exhausting the sea and the land, the people of the 10th province have begun to develop other resources to make a happy and prosperous life. New industries, some stemming from the old, are contributing to a more bountiful present and future. At Donovan's, 5 miles from St. John's, Newfoundland Hardwoods Limited has, since 1951, been turning out birch flooring, veneer plywood, slab doors, and furniture stock. This factory marked the beginning of a new industrialization of the 10th province. As its first step in the economic development drive, the government decided to produce convincing evidence that the island was truly launched upon the road of dynamic progress. To accomplish this, 3 plants were built out of public money. The birch plant, a cement plant in Corner Brook East, and a gypsum mill in Humbermouth. Placed between the sea and a mountain of limestone that will last 1,000 years, the cement mill was bought by the North Star Cement Company and now produces each year 100,000 tons of high-quality cement for consumers in Newfoundland and on the Canadian mainland. By train and by boat, this product carries its Newfoundland trademark to construction jobs all over the expanding nation and beyond. The name Newfoundland has begun to be identified with quality and progress. Newfoundland gypsum deposits in the Flat Bay area are the purest to be found anywhere. From the raw material, Atlantic Gypsum Limited in Humbermouth, in production since 1952, turns out gypsum plaster, gypsum wallboard, and plaster lath. Countries which have attained high living standards know that materials exported raw do not produce the best return. Conversion to finished or at least half-finished products brings more favorable prices in world markets and, additionally, creates employment and added income. This new industry produces 10,000 tons of plaster and 65 million square feet of wallboard per year. The next step in the island's economic development was to induce European industrialists to open branch factories in Newfoundland, both to attract new business and to teach valuable trade skills to Newfoundlanders. Loans were granted to help these industries establish themselves. The first plant to come into production under this government scheme was William Dorn's Newfoundland Tanneries Limited in Carbonear. Starting production with a very small staff of highly skilled specialists, the Dorn family has taught their trade secrets to many Newfoundlanders, who now convert raw animal hides and seal skins into fine leather and leather garments. United Cotton Mills Limited, outside St. John's, produces shirts, pajamas, sportswear, and working clothes. Very specialized machines have been installed. Looking at the industrious hands which operate them, you couldn't say who is the teacher and who the pupil. But when you talk to them, the European accent gives away the few specialists who brought these new skills to Newfoundland. Expert craftsmen are also employed at the Octagon plant of Canadian Machinery and Industry Construction Limited. Since 1952, apprentices have been trained here for this highly exacting work. Besides filling orders for military establishments, the plant takes care of such diverse civilian needs as dryer heads for the A&D Company's paper mill in Grand Falls and trucks suitable for transporting food for mink farms. Pothead whale meat from Newfoundland waters, a cheap and satisfactory source of food for mink, attracted the interest of mink ranchers from the mainland. The basic material was readily available, but could it effectively and economically be processed into mink food? Premier Smallwood was interested in learning the answer. The answer was yes, when various cereals, horse meat, and fish were blended with the basic whale meat to produce a balanced diet. And so, for Newfoundland under Confederation, another promising new industry, top-grade mink. Special type storage batteries, particularly suited to the climate of Newfoundland, have been developed by Henning Electrical Company Limited in Topsail. Henning's storage batteries perform normally, even in the worst winter weather. Of interest to the distaff side, at Terranova Textiles Limited outside St. John's, machines cut up to 1,200 layers of cloth simultaneously, rivet pockets to overalls, fold the seam, sew it, and make 5,000 stitches in a minute. The 3 needles grow so hot that they must be cooled by an airstream, or they'd scorch the white uniforms they're making. Buttons are attached skillfully and easily. But of course, even the best seamstress, even a machine, can break a thread. Beautifully situated at the foot of a hill, a little outside Brigus, is Eckhart Mills Limited. In these cheerful working conditions, Newfoundland men and women, assisted by a few specialists from Austria, turn out handsome sweaters and knitted suits. sizable orders for the Department of Defense are accounting for most of the full capacity production at Kosh Shoes Limited, a new industry in Harbor Grace on Conception Bay. But of course, the regular markets on the mainland also provide customers for these smart, stylish shoes designed for Canadian men and women. Adjoining the Kosh shoe plant is the Gold Sale Leather Goods. This company has distinguished itself by skillfully utilizing the leather and fur of Newfoundland seal to make attractive handbags and a variety of other products. Another firm to take advantage of an important Newfoundland product near at hand is Carbonier's Atlantic Gloves Limited. After skillful processing of seal skins and other animal hides, the resulting fine leather is fashioned into gloves, well known for their beauty and craftsmanship. For the sweet tooth of Newfoundland and Canada as a whole, there's Adler's Chocolates Limited in Bay Roberts. This new firm employs the time-tested techniques of England's famous chocolate and candy makers. A new product, one hardly known on this continent before, is being manufactured by Atlantic Hardboard Limited just outside St. John's. Low-grade timber that in former days was considered useless in the island's lumber industry is ground to chips. These chips are then mixed with a special glue, and then under heat and high pressure, they're bonded into quality pressboard used for furniture, wall paneling, and a dozen other purposes. But what does all this increased activity and prosperity mean to the individual man and woman of Newfoundland? Pride and achievement is important, yes, but the tangible benefit that everybody recognizes is payday and the paycheck. The new industries alone have given jobs to 2,400 men and women, paid them in wages about $8 million a year. Adding to this the amount spent on local purchases and other services, the new industries have, since they started, paid out in cash to Newfoundlanders $34 million. And, of course, the paycheck, translated into terms of everyday life in the new province, means new homes for more comfortable living, new appliances and labor-saving devices, plenty of good food to eat in new supermarkets filled with the products of Newfoundland and the world beyond. Money to buy necessities and luxuries, more of which are now manufactured here since Confederation. Time and the desire for the good life. New schools, new hospitals, new churches. More and more time for leisure, for doing as you please. Golf, tennis, fishing, what you will. Better communications, radio and television. Better roads in a big new building program which will revolutionize life in the 10th province. Better railroads, getting still better with the new diesel engines. Time for sports, for hockey, for curling. Time for hobbies. Time to look at the wonder of a growing land. And here, at the heart of the country, the men behind the miracle, the members of the Newfoundland government, bend themselves to the task of building an even bigger and better future. It is nearly a century since the fathers of Confederation gathered round their historic table to shape the destiny of Canada. Today, in the newest province, their work goes on with the same proud spirit of achievement. A dream becoming a reality through the faith of the man who had the dream, Premier Joseph R. Smallwood.
Newfoundland is now almost a brand new country since Confederation. The living standards of our people have been raised and are higher now than they've ever been before. The standards of our public services have been greatly raised and are higher than they ever were. Some entirely new industries have been established, and some old industries have been considerably enlarged and improved. And in addition to that, there has been a great increase in the speed of the search for new natural resources. And all this is only a beginning. Newfoundland is truly on the march. Nothing can hold us back now. Confederation has been a real success.